you're ready.
Fine, we're rolling.
I'm Stan Rizley, editor of the immokalee Bulletin newspaper, and as the editor of the paper, I've been in a position to observe the migrant people who come into this community each year. These houses that the people around here build for these migrant families are, for the most part, they're pretty decent homes when they're first finished. As for example, one of the local men built 20 units at a cost of some $115,000, and this was 6 years ago. And today, those same units were pictured this last spring by the George McGovern committee and demonstrated as being deplorable housing. But these migrant people were the ones who made it deplorable housing. They apparently don't know what restrooms, modern facilities are, because the toilet stools and so forth are broken, and they throw beer bottles in them, wine bottles, and what have you. But then, by the same token, we do have good migrant people who come in here and do take care of property and are proud of the houses in which they live. And well, now this goes into stages. Now, in the fall, in October, when they first come in, the general payment scale is $8 per day. As the produce comes on and they start to harvest, this pay scale goes up and continues to go up, and they go on to an hourly base of 2.5 minimum, up to $3 per hour for field work. I'm referring to now.
So what does this contribute? What is the annual income?
Well, their annual income, I don't know. I never figured it on the annual basis. However, probably their weekly income would run somewhere in the neighborhood of $60 per week, and then that would be based out over a period of 8 months. And this gives them a fairly good income. And of course, these people are normally they're used to traveling all over the country. Oh, well, yes, there are. Now, a migrant worker, of course, he never establishes roots, or very few of them do. Now, we do have some migrants here who are registered voters and have a regular residence and a post office box. They, in emergencies, could become eligible for county relief. Other than that, for relief, they go to the medical clinic for sickness and so forth. For the times when the weather knocks the crops out and so forth, then that comes through federal aid and be brought in during a disaster.
Why don't they have the food stamp program here at all?
The state of Florida doesn't have the food stamp program.
Or the food commodities. The commodities.
The commodities, they have that on just an interim basis during a disaster when bad weather or rain or a freeze or something of this nature knocks our crops out. Then they do set up a food commodities service.
Yeah. Can you tell us about the union situation here with the workers?
Now, the workers here do not have a union. The farmers would actually welcome unionization of the migrant workers, because situations such as came about this spring wouldn't happen with a union. This spring we had a bumper crop of watermelons. We were coming in with the tomatoes and the other vegetables, and labor went from $3 an hour, which is considered high for field work, went from $3 to $4, and then to $4.50, and the last week you couldn't even hire them at $5 an hour.
Did you have to import foreign labor?
This is this migrant labor that we're referring to. Actually, it's not foreign labor now. We're referring here to colored people, Spanish people, and what we call the Caucasian people, who travel about the country and make a living traveling from one end of this nation to the other.
One question.
Who owns the camps, these kind of shack shanty town things?
Well, I'm kind of happy about the fact that you brought that up, because most of these camps that we refer to are owned by the farmers, and very few farmers charge these migrant laborers for living in these camps. They provide these camps for them to live in, so that when they need the labor will be right there at the farm. They still receive the same wage that the migrant worker who lives in town receives. So actually, this migrant worker who lives in these camps is benefiting by living there, because this is what he wants to do. This is where he wants to live. He wants to live out away from town. And he's closer to his work.
Standard of work.
What kind of automation has been brought in terms of...
Well, actually, the major type of automation that has been brought in is the large disking and methods of plowing the land and planting. But as far as harvesting the crops, so far they have not come up with a suitable process of harvesting the crops by automation. Now, they tried here a few years ago to automate the pepper industry, but they destroyed so many plants that it wasn't feasible. And the same held true with the tomatoes. So then they finally wound up by having the migrant workers to walk ahead of the automation machine that was supposed to do the picking and pick the produce and put it onto the conveyor belt that took it up, and it was a self-contained unit. When they came off from this conveyor belt thing, they were packaged into the package and went directly onto the truck, and then came on into town to the railroad siding or to other trucks.
Are they using that still?
No, sir, it wasn't feasible, and this was you might say, a flash in the pan. It was an attempt to automate the tomato picking industry, but so far they have not succeeded.